Awesome. So Wade, tell us, what is your spiritual background and what was your life like growing up?
So I came from a divorced family. I lived with my dad most of my life. Just grew up with my dad. Wherever he went, whatever he did, that's where I was. That's what I was doing, and that included going to church. So I pretty much, for as long as I can remember, was with my dad going to church every Sunday morning. Um, then about the age of like 5 or 6, around kindergarten, first grade or so, a lot of the kids my age were starting to get baptized, and I didn't really know what that meant. I just was like, oh, that's cool. They're getting dunked in water. That sounds like fun. Um, so I asked my parents, I was like, what is that for, And so they pulled out a little pamphlet and explained what baptism is and kind of ran through the gospel with me. And I said, yeah, I want to do that. Everyone else is doing it. And I went up to my pastor and I just kind of repeated whatever prayer he told me to pray, and just I was like, yeah, I accept this. And I went up and I got dunked like the next Sunday, but there was nothing changed in my heart. I just kind of was going through the motions.
So tell us how you came to faith in Christ. What did that look like?
Yeah, so I kind of just went back to doing whatever normal elementary school things are. I don't know. And about like fifth or sixth grade or so, we had this weekend event at our church in our youth group. It's called Storm. It was very similar to like how they do D now here in Arlington churches, but ours was called Storm out in Fort Worth. And my home was the host home for all like the fifth and sixth grade guys that were like my age. And I went to the Saturday service, and I couldn't tell you a single song that the band played or a single thing that the pastor really even said. But it was like a switch was flipped in my heart that whenever there was an invitation to receive Christ, I mean, it was just like this spirit just flipped a switch in my heart, and it was like the first time that I've truly felt the weight of all the sins that I ever had, and truly understood what it meant to be a sinner, and truly understood that I couldn't save myself, and that I needed Jesus to be that way for me to be redeemed to the Father. And so I went home, and we had a little small group discussion with all the guys, and I went straight to my bedroom with my dad, and I just poured out into my dad. I was pouring out tears. I just told him, I was like, I didn't truly believe before, but now I understand the gospel. I have a full understanding, and I want that. So I prayed to receive Christ, like in my bedroom, crying on my dad, like so 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 many tears. And I went to my pastor with a lot of fear. Um, I was really scared to go in front of the church that I've been baptized in like 5 years prior and say, that was kind of all just for show. So, but with a lot of counsel from my parents and from the pastors at my old church, they walked me through, and we had a good understanding that I truly received Christ that night. And so I got rebaptized in that church, truly as a profession of my faith.
Awesome. Yeah. So since coming to faith in Christ, how has your life changed?
So after that, we moved away. We moved out to Arlington, and we kind of left that church out in Fort Worth. And then going to church and just things like that just kind of fell to the wayside for my family. Um, we just kind of were too busy, I guess, quote unquote. I mean, we were just too busy with all the things me and my sister were doing, and so going to church just fell by the wayside. And I didn't really have a community to grow, and so I was isolated in my faith, and that my faith kind of got stomped out as I just went to school and lived a normal life. I just had my faith stomped out, and um, I got swamped in a lot of sin. I put my faith in a lot of the sin I was in, a lot of the relationships I was getting into, and it led to some really dark places where I was in deep anxiety, a lot of depression, and just some very dark times in my life. Till about senior year, I met this girl who was a Christian, and she invited me to church, which was not the first time. I'd been to church on and off, I guess, a couple times. But she invited me to church, and me being like super crushing on this girl, went to church with her. I was like, yeah, I'm a Christian. I'll go to church with you. Um, Um, and but regardless of how I got to the church, the Spirit really used that time and going to church repeatedly again and making it a regular part of my life. He just flipped that switch and reignited that fire that like I never really recognized that I was missing before, that I was really desperately missing the community that had that could have been growing my faith all these years. And so eventually, we went our separate ways, and I kind of left that church. But I came here to college, and like I still had that hunger to get into a Christian community. And like the first thing I did is I was like, okay, I can't squander this fire like again. So I came here to BSM. That was like the first thing I did on this campus was like came straight here because I was like, this sounds like a pretty good deal. And then like recently, within the past year, I got involved at Southfield. I'm involved in a church now. Got a church home. Um, so yeah, and I've been, I guess, since college, just been growing in a community of believers ever since.
So good. And one final question is, what is a challenge or a word of encouragement you have for the students?
So for the believer, especially new believers, um, seek out community. Like, don't just say like, "Oh, I prayed to receive Christ. Ching, I got my salvation. I'm good to go," and there's just like not be in community, um, because community is where you'll like be bolstered and encouraged and held accountable by believers who will grow your faith, and it is a tremendous experience to be bolstered by other believers around you. Um, I guess I brought my Fuel in the Flame copy because I've been reading it, and I read a quote on Sunday when I was reading, and I just wanted to kind of leave y'all with this quote. Please. The quote is from Bonhoeffer, who is a German theologian back in like the 40s. And he says, "Sin demands to have a man by himself. The more isolated a person is, the more destructive the power of sin is over him." So that just really speaks to, isolation in your faith and just how dangerous it can be in stomping out that fire. So I encourage the believer just to go seek out community and be bolstered by the believers around you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Wade. Yeah.